So what this thing likes to do, and this is a very common story with people, is it will influence the individual, especially in the beginning, and this happened to me. It will influence the individual to follow through with a direct order. Because when this first started happening to me, now I had been experiencing the gang stalking stage for years, and I always brush it off as psychosis. I'm just having some weird thing of psychosis. Maybe I need medication. Maybe I need to see a doctor. And then in July 28th of 2023, it transitioned from believing to knowing, because there's a big split there, right? When the mind goes from believing that something weird is happening to knowing, you can't go back anymore. There's that point in life where this no longer exists.
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours. What if the voices in your head weren't just in your head? What if your dreams weren't your own and your emotions could be dialed up or down like a radio signal? This week, I'm joined by Kevin, a man who claims to be a targeted individual, someone experiencing a battery of bizarre, often terrifying phenomena that blur the lines between surveillance, psychotronics, and the paranormal. From involuntary astral projection to light orbs, from dream hijacking to what some might call gang stalking. Kevin he doesn't just tell stories. He brings us into a reality that changes everything we think we know about the boundaries of the mind. He's also the founder of the Reddit community r positive ti, and he's on a mission not just to survive but to connect, guide, and maybe even uncover the truth behind the curtain. Aren't we always trying to uncover the truth behind the curtain? So buckle up, Codex seekers. This isn't your usual trip through the rabbit hole. This one might already be inside your head. All right, all my listeners and viewers, if you can't get enough of these curiosities, maybe you should check out my library of past interviews like MK Ultra Assassin with Nathan Reynolds or The Nephilim Look Like Clowns with Paul Stobbs. And of course, one of my favorites, but you got to go way back for this one. It's The Nightmare in Michigan. And if you're listening to this episode and you're tired of these ads, check out my Patreon for the price of a good coffee. You can get all this content ad free, and you're supporting the show as well. I greatly appreciate that. All right, everyone. Without further ado, let's bring Kevin to the stage. Kevin, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm so No problem. Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation because this is something I truly don't know too much about. I've heard of targeted individuals before, but I in all sense and purposes, I don't know what it entails, and I'd love for you to fill us in on what that is. And then let's go into your story and your experience. But before we do that, Kevin, if you want to promote anything such as your Reddit group, by all means, now is the time.
Sure. So we have the Reddit community, which is it's a community of people that are all sharing similar signs and symptoms that are associated with being a targeted individual, but also kind of leach into a lot of other communities as well. Because the further we get into this, the more I find that the signs and symptoms that we experience are also shared amongst a large body of other communities, but they just have different labels and different names for it. Okay, so and that community is positive TI on Reddit. And we also just started on YouTube. If you put in, go to the search engine on YouTube and put in Power Awareness, we started a podcast on there. And under the playlist, you'll come across a whole series of other discourses and discussions that I have held over the past year with other targeted individuals all across the country and the planet. And there's also two recent podcasts that we did. One with just was another interview with me, and then another one with Dr. Jerry Marzinski. who is we can kind of talk about that more, who is a psychiatrist of 35 years and who, after 35 years of being in the psychiatry field, came to find that schizophrenics are not dealing with a disease or a mental illness, but are actually dealing with a negative energy that is using them for loosh. So fascinating, very fascinating podcast. If you get a chance, go over there and check out that podcast and get a good feel for Dr. Marzinski and his work and his mission and what he's trying to do, and kind of revamp the psychiatric field and get people thinking on a different trajectory.
I
Yeah.
I've always questioned that with schizophrenia, thinking like, are they truly just hearing like is it just voices in their head, like internal voice? I don't want to say like maybe internal, like their own voices.
Yeah.
But I've always thought maybe this is something else. Maybe this is external interactions, interference,
Yeah.
and that's what he's kind of going. And Loosh is something we've talked about earlier on another episode when we're talking about the reincarnation trap. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I talked to another individual about what Loosh was, and well, she explained what Loosh was. So there is a lot, like you said, there's a lot of tie-ins to these other groups, and that's something that I've been pulling out as well. I had an author on named Vicky Joy Anderson, a good friend of mine, and she was saying, like we all have these. We all think we have this like this piece of a puzzle to this small puzzle. Like, oh, I got this one. Like,
Right.
I think I have this idea of like this UFO or these paranormal or these cryptids or something. But in fact, it's a piece of the smaller section of this whole puzzle, which is everything. It's
Right.
all connected.
Right. So, and you know what? And this is a very good place for us to start this off with. So let's get into that and kind of work through the targeted individual experience. All right, because most people, for just from a general audience's perspective, most people are aware of schizophrenia. Okay. So if a targeted individual were to go to a doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist and explain all of their signs and symptoms, they would be diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Okay. And put on put on medication, and then, start a regimen of medication and therapy. So the biggest difference between the targeted individual community and the schizophrenia community is that we have come to not only believe but to know that what we experience originates external to the mind, right? So the schizophrenic believes that they have, psychosis, they have a disease. The problem is all up here. We know that the problem is out here and is entangled up here. Okay, so that's something really good to get out of the way. So the signs and symptoms that we experience, number one, hearing voices. This is a big thing. A lot of us hear voices. Gang stalking is another topic. That's kind of an earlier phased part of being a targeted individual. It usually starts off with gang stalking, sorry. And
And sorry,
me,
can you explain just a little bit of what gang stalking is?
sure. So I'll speak from my own personal experience.
Yeah,
My gang
please.
stalking phase was 100% psychological manipulation, meaning that I was led to believe that there were people out to, mean me harm, kill me. So, and the voices would say this, they would, if I was going somewhere, they'd say, "Don't go there. John's going to be there and he's going to shoot you." And I'm like, who the hell is John? I don't know anybody named John. Like, why would anybody be saying this? And you'll hear voices of people that you know. So there was one night where I was actually put into almost a trance kind of a state, like a slump. I couldn't move, paralyzed, almost like a somewhere between being fully conscious and sleep paralysis. I was aware, and I feel like if something were to happen in my environment, I could have reacted, but it was like that fear, like you're scared fear, and it for about an hour. These voices went through. Oh my gosh, they went through being my ex-girlfriend and her current boyfriend to my ex-employer, friends, coworkers, an old roommate, just playing out all these different scenarios of unmet obligations, unresolved issues, things that I had held some remorse over, some guilt over, some shame over, and just kind of reenacted all this. And I'm speaking in my head to this whole reenactment that's going on. And this is a common thing. This happens to a lot of people. Now, take that same scenario and now put it in with like conscious everyday life, and you're still hearing this. and but you're hearing it external to yourself, right? So this is another thing. A lot of people hear the voices, but they hear it outside. It sounds as if it's coming from the room next door. It sounds as if it's coming from the neighbor's house, like the neighbors are yelling. Like this thing can actually mimic any sound that it wants. Cars honking, people screaming, babies yelling. I just did an interview with a guy where he was sitting in his living room and the voices were screaming at him, "We're killing your daughter," next, in the bedroom. So he hears his daughter screaming. So he runs into the bedroom. His daughter's asleep. So now and he's freaking out. And whatever this thing is, like it'll toy with people that way. It'll produce these very fear-centric scenarios that you're meant to push through. Or according to Dr. Morzinski, the fear is to be given off so that other negative energies can feed off of it, which is what Loosh is. The recreation of a fearful scenario in somebody's life so that these unseen interdimensional entities that we can't see feed off of that negative energy. So that's pretty fascinating. So but again, so that's one of them, the hearing voices and tactile sensations, being poked, prodded, zapped, felt like you're getting hit with electrical charges, intense itch spots in your palms of your hands, in your genital area, the tops of your head. It can control any one of your perceptions, your smell, your sight, your hearing, your taste. Out of nowhere, everything will just taste like crap. You'll start smelling urine. You'll smell popcorn just out of nowhere, So, and when these things happen and you begin to realize how easily your perception can be manipulated, eh, you start, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So, but let's kind of rewind a little bit. And what I would like to do, if it's okay with you, is really walk somebody through the stages of the targeted individual progression. Like we'll kind of climb up the ladder together, a ladder of explanations, right? Eliminating each explanation as you go, because in my personal opinion and in my experience, and in the opinion and experience of other very experienced targeted individuals, eventually you come to find that every explanation that you're thinking of is something that you were meant to overcome, right? So, in the beginning, when you start hearing the voices, you immediately think it's your neighbors, like, because they'll mimic the sounds of your neighbors. You'll think that somebody's messing with your television, right? Because the TV and the people speaking on the TV will begin speaking very negatively towards you, calling you a piece of crap. You'll just be watching a Netflix show, and all of a sudden, the dialogue in the show will change, and it's directed at you, and it's saying some of the most negatively charged things that you can think of, personal things like, "How does it know this about me?" Um, the sounds will be projected and sound as if they're coming from intertwined with ambient noise. I used to hear sounds coming out of running water. Ceiling fans was a big one, like especially a bathroom fan, refrigerator, any sort of whirring motor type of thing, the air conditioner in your car. Cars even rolling down the street, I would hear it in. And eventually I could hear it in cricket chirps or heavy breathing. I could hear the voices as if the voices were going at all times, and I was waiting for some sort of ambient noise to get intertwined with it so that it could dial the volume up for me to hear it. So that becomes very
It's like
tricky to
like a carrier almost for those voices is what it
exactly,
is.
exactly. And what I came to find with that, this is a very interesting piece of the puzzle, like what we were talking about, is that ambient noise is filtered out by the mind, right? So the mind does this process called sensory gating, where it doesn't pay attention to ambient noise because it doesn't need to. Why should I have to pay attention to my refrigerator running or my ceiling fan going? It's a safe noise. I don't need to focus on it. So ambient noise bypasses the conscious mind and goes directly to the subconscious mind. That's where it goes. And it's important to understand the difference between the two aspects of mind. So the conscious mind is the part of our mind that is it reasons. It's the thinking mind. It's the part of the mind that says, is this right or wrong? Yes or no, this or that. The subconscious mind takes everything literally. It doesn't know the difference between right or wrong. Everything is an imagination, and it's our long-term memory mixed in with however we want to perceive it and make something up. And then the conscious mind has to say, no, that's not right, or that is right, or yeah, you can, that's okay to look at it that way. When you hear voices intertwined with ambient noise, right? So it's one of two things. It's either coming in from elsewhere and it's bypassing the conscious mind and going directly to the subconscious mind, right? Or it's already in the subconscious mind intertwining with that ambient noise. Either way, the voices that you're hearing, you have no choice but to believe them because it speaks directly to the subconscious mind and bypasses the thinking mind. And this is why so many of us are honeypotted in an incalculable amount of times, right? This is why something so simply, something that should be so simply viewed upon as being ridiculous is not. It's why when we hear it, we have such a difficult time deciphering, is this right or is this wrong? And these voices will get away with playing any role that they want because of that tactic, right? And so, and this is something important to understand. So, and they will play every role, right? So let's work up the ladder, like I was saying. First, they'll play the role of your most obvious assumptions, your neighbors, your loved ones, people that you're having some sort of a conflict with in your life, and the voices will sound exactly like that person. Okay, and you're hearing it in your head, and you're hearing it external to yourself, and you're thinking that that person means you harm, and that they are somehow using machinery, some sort of V2K machine. This is a widespread belief in the targeted individual and gang stalking community is that there are individuals out there with V2K voice to skull technology that are projecting their voices into your head, right? This is absolutely false. There is none of, and I have to say this because this is where people get murdered, right? So if you look at the schizophrenia community, 13% of people that are diagnosed with schizophrenia wind up committing suicide. Now it's the opposite in the right, and that's because they believe the problem's up here. They're sick. I hate myself, right? With the targeted individual community, problem exists elsewhere. So now they're looking for an external explanation, and people murder their neighbors. They confront their neighbors, they confront loved ones, they confront the police when they show up at the door because they think the police are out to get them. All you have to do really is put in targeted individual, like go to Google and put in targeted individual, assault, murder, whatever, and it'll boom, it'll just come up. So one of the more recent ones is a an individual named Stephen Marlowe, and I believe he was in Ohio. If you ever get a chance, look up this guy's story. So Stephen was also hearing the voices in his home, and they were saying the same exact thing that I was hearing. You're being mind controlled. This is the government. All this. So, but he thought it was his neighbors, and that his neighbors were operating some sort of a terrorist cell organization. It drove him so mad, he went to his one neighbor's house, which was an elderly couple, shot and killed them both. Then went to the other neighbor's house, that was a wife and her 14-year-old daughter, shot and killed both of them. And then went back on his social media page and boasted saying he was doing this for the targeted individual community. Now to the general public, reading something like this, they're like, what a sick F, like this guy is out of his mind. He should be put away forever. Well, thankfully, he's still in a psych ward, and it's important for people to understand that to him it was very real. To him, he was acting out on what he perceived to be a reality, right? So that was a very real thing to him, and it's a very real thing to a lot of other people. So let's kind of keep going forward here, right? So once you move past that, you have to come to the realization, okay, it's not my neighbors. The local police can't do this. It's not any of my loved ones. They don't mean me harm, right? Even though the voices are reenacting your loved ones and your employers, you have to push past through that phase because that's just a phase. And that's the phase most people get stuck in. And then it goes higher up the ladder. Okay. Then people start thinking that it's some sort of an Illuminati secret society organization that's doing this, or these cells that are all over America that they have, or COINTELPRO, or just the United States government. They think it's the CIA, or they think it's the FBI, or they think it's the NSA that's using some sort of satellite technology that is blasting, voices into people's heads. Okay, so first of all, I speak to people every single day from everywhere from Australia to Italy, South America, England, that's a big one, Canada, everywhere. I mean, I'm talking every single continent. There are people in my community communicating every day that are all experiencing the same exact signs and symptoms. I mean, verbatim, same exact statements, same sequential procedural process. Everybody's saying the same exact thing. So that eliminates right there. That right there eliminates psychosis. That eliminates hallucination. That
because
because it's
this is like
oh, it's
a
a mass
mass
thing.
thing, you know.
It's a
Now
mass thing.
I have a Kevin, I have a question before we go
Yeah,
too far with this, just concerning that you're talking to all these people worldwide. Have you noticed any increase, decrease, or it's kind of the same over the years?
it's the same over the years, and it's a sequence. It's a sequence. Oh, I'm sorry. So are you saying increase in population?
Yes, correct. In the
Oh,
numbers, like it's happening more and more,
it
like
is
to more and
happening
more
more.
people is what I was saying.
It's happening more and more as technology becomes more and more because the people in the schizophrenia community are now looking at a technological explanation, right? So before 2006, the term targeted individual wasn't even a term. It wasn't a label. It wasn't until 2006 when social media platforms like Facebook and Reddit started, becoming, going on the internet and becoming live, and people could share this information. And now with the technological increase and people seeing things online, such as mind reading technologies and all this, now that there is a confirmation bias. So we're seeing a big increase from the schizophrenia community now into the targeted individual community. And we're also noticing a more of a pattern in the voices. So now that there is this technological explanation, the voices are utilizing that as another role playing gig, right? So so I speak to people all over the planet that are sharing the same signs and symptoms, right? So there's patterns here, and hallucinations, they do not run patterns. That's just not how hallucinations work. And so to say that it's strictly the CIA or it's the FBI, right? Well, that's false. It can't be. So you have to go higher, right? So now we're going up the ladder of explanations here. So what's above that? Some sort of oversighting world dominant, you know, conglomerate that's doing this to people at a global scale. That's the next step there. Well, now here comes the paranormal stuff. Right? So, in my experience, I have had visitation from light orbs, just white balls of light about the size of a softball, maybe a baseball. That usually will start off. If I'm standing out on my back deck, it's as if the sky will take my picture, poof, like a flashbulb. A flashbulb will go off, and then all of a sudden, these little white balls will start whizzing overhead. No sound whatsoever. So that eliminates a small drone. Because at first I was like, maybe it's a drone. No sound, just almost like a ball of plasma, right? Some plasmoid type of, apparitions. I've had visitation from blue apparitions that the one night this one apparition appeared. It reached out, it touched my forehead with a vibratory touch, as if your phone was on vibrate and you took the corner of your phone and stuck it on your forehead, and it ran its index finger and its thumb down my forehead across the bridge of my nose and placed something into my mouth, and then I swallowed it, can feel a vibration go down my throat. I mean, just absolutely bananas, right? So, but there was a sense of peace with that, and the entity, it felt, I want to say that it felt feminine, but that would be wrong. For me, that sort of um, euphoric feeling in my life is like as a straight man has only ever been expressed with women. So so for me, it felt like a feminine presence, but I can't say that. I don't know. I really don't know. But there was a feeling of sincerity and peace with that, of just a calm overtaking, um, which is not par for the course for this experience. Most of the experience is very fear driven, and anxiety ridden. So, what else? The dream constructs. This thing will reconstruct any dream that it wishes and place you in it. Um, so that you have to reenact certain scenarios to get over your fears or to just enjoy them. Sometimes they're very perverse. And then, you wake up out of these like perverse dreamscapes, as I refer to them, and you're kind of like, what the hell was that? So the mind is constantly torn between, is this thing here to help me or is it here to hurt me? Like, I don't know. Because in my experience, it seems to be very amoral. It's not moral and it's not immoral. It's like it'll do anything and everything, and it's up to the individual to learn the lesson behind it, or to make up a lesson. Like, you have to constantly be in a state of, what can I learn from this? How can I utilize this and apply this to my life? Because if you don't do that, what you're going to do is harbor anger and animosity and hatred, and you're going to take it out on undeserving people. I mean, that's just it happens. Like, it happens a lot. Most of the targeted individual community is completely enshrouded, or is completely shrouded in confusion and madness and chaos, right? With everybody not knowing, and anger. There's a lot of anger and hatred and rage there as well, and no clarity, no clarification, just people spurting out their opinions and their theories with no real clarity. So, that's kind of why I do what I do here, is to try to hope to bring, like, the totality of my experience and the experience of others, and my findings of dealing with people all across the planet, and bring it all together to try to bring and piece together like another something else here. Because what this thing is it encapsulates everything. There's not one paranormal community that I can't go on and say, well, I haven't experienced that. It's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So, all right, we'll kind of move forward now. So let's go to the next phase, right? And this is kind of where I'm at now. Now, and mind you, that the point of each one of these phases, in my opinion, right? And if somebody doesn't view it this way, they certainly can view it this way to help get themselves through the phases. The point of each one of these phases is to view yourself in light of each one of the explanations, right? So if you think that your neighbors hate you, or you think that your parents hate you, or your parents are out to get you, your next question in your head is, well, why would my parents do this to me? What have I done to my parents? Like, why would my neighbors do this to me? Am I a bad neighbor? Why would my local police department do this to me? Do I have warrants? Like, have I done something wrong? So, and you'll go through these series of internal questionings, right? And if you can kind of go through that and eliminate each rung of the ladder, right? Well, that'll help push you through. As So if you can kind of go up the ladder, viewing yourself in light of each of these explanations. Why would my government do this to me? Like, my local librarian doesn't even know who I am. You think the CIA knows who I am? No, like, nobody knows who I am. I'm just some dude that operates a forklift for a living. Like, no, I'm not that special. So, but it makes you feel special, which is another thing, right? So it's like, you're experiencing something that is unique to you, and nobody else will understand except for other people in the community. And in that regard, it makes the person feel very chosen, right? In fact, there's an entire community on, like, TikTok, of the targeted individuals that have transferred the name over to chosen ones, because they feel like they're, yes. So if you put in chosen ones on TikTok or YouTube, you'll get a whole bunch of targeted individual stories and testimonies, and because they feel that they have been chosen. Now, these are people that have chosen to utilize their experience to better themselves, because it kicks ass when you do it that way. Now, if you utilize the experience to just hate on other people and learn to hate life, it'll just exaggerate it. What this thing does is it does not comfort or console your weaknesses. It exasperates them beyond measure until you no longer have an emotional attachment to them. That's just, I mean, that is a fact. That is just how this thing has always gone for everybody, and it's just how it's going to continue to go. So you have to learn to let go. Letting go is a big part of this process. Letting go of old beliefs, letting go of old ideologies, letting go of things that don't matter, because it'll continue to take molehills and turn them into mountains until you no longer view it as a mountain, until you thoroughly explore every top of that mountain and find it deserted. And then it'll become a molehill again. So, what this thing likes to do, and this is a very common story with people, is it will influence the individual, especially in the beginning. And this happened to me. It will influence the individual to follow through with a direct order. Because when this first started happening to me, now I had been experiencing the gang stalking stage for years, and I always brushed it off as psychosis. I'm just having some weird thing of psychosis. Maybe I need medication. Maybe I need to see a doctor. And then in July 28th of 2023, it transitioned from believing to knowing, because there's a big split there, right? When the mind goes from believing that something weird is happening to knowing, you can't go back anymore. There's that point in life where this no longer exists. I'm going forward with this new understanding and this new realization, right? And once they made it known to me, like they made themselves known, like they came alive. Like, yeah, no, you're not crazy. This is happening, right? I was tested, and because they made that known again, I thought that I was special. I thought that I was chosen. Surely this is some sort of benevolent higher power that is here in my time of crisis to help me, right? I'm in a state of suffering, and this is going to help me. And I didn't know what it was. And they said, Kevin, we want you to drive down to the Philadelphia International Airport and wait in a parking lot that we tell you to go to, and somebody's going to come by and pick you up. And I said, oh, this is human. Like, I'm dealing with humans here. Like, this is actually like, so I said, all right. And I'm telling my girlfriend. So my girlfriend, God bless her, she puts me in the car. We drive all the way down to the international airport, and I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait. And nobody ever came, obviously. Right. So, thank God that what they did, and that right there was them telling me never follow through with a direct order, right? Because people do follow through with direct orders. I mean, this other guy that I speak to, he said, "Dude, they told me to go to Burger King and order a Whopper." And like that would help me. So we went to Burger King and he ordered a Whopper, and then they just mocked him. Now, for other people that are dealing with like religious stuff, they'll tell the person to start going to church, and this is where it gets very sinister and kind of sick, actually. They'll tell the person to start going to church, read your Bible more. We want you to read your Bible. And then when they go to church, they torture the hell out of them. I mean, physically torture them, scream at them, yell at them, zap them, choke them, it's crazy. And then mock them for following through with an order. So when something like that happens, and I'm very thankful that, you know, I wasn't given that sort of treatment, because a lot of people do. They kept it mild, even though it was embarrassing and it was humbling and it was something humiliating, and it only increased my confusion. Starting this thing off, I learned at that point, do not ever follow through with a direct order. Okay, so um, let me kind of backtrack. So going back to the that split from believing to knowing, what they did that night. All right, so they basically turned my room into a planetarium. Um, I had been hearing the voices on and off for
So,
a few years.
Kevin, do
Yeah.
we want to start from the beginning of your experience now? Do we want to go from that one
You want to? Yeah, we
and
can do that.
yeah,
Yeah, we can
let's do
just.
that. Now you kind of summed this all up. Now I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your experience with this.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sounds good. So I was raised Christian. I'll start off with that. All right. So I was raised very conservative Christian in a Baptist church, and my father was an alcoholic and a heroin addict, who left my mother and my brother and I at a very young age. And I think I was maybe like 3 when he left. So for a while there, it was just my mother, myself, and my brother. And she started taking us all to church and implementing a Christian upbringing into our life. She remarried, and the guy that she remarried adopted me when I was in third grade. So growing up in my house, it was myself, my older stepbrother that had a different dad, and now this new dad, and then they had twins of their own. So it was awkward, I want to say, but we made the best of it. But there was definitely this sort of rebelliousness in me, this sort of, and I looking back at it now, I was struggling with a lot of like abandonment issues. Okay. So going through my upbringing, and growing up in the church like that, I remember at one point in my life really being like, on fire, like for the church. And then as I kind of got into my high school years, I started partying a lot. I had kind of found like a niche of friends that were all kind of party animals, and and then that went down a pretty dark path for me. I got involved with a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs, and yet knowing the whole time, because of this Christian upbringing, that there's a better way. So immediately from a very early age, I kind of started this dichotomy within myself, of like knowing, but almost like sitting on the middle of a fence with one side on this side and the other side on the other side of the fence, and really just kind of teetering and knowing what was better for me, but still wanting to participate in toxic behaviors, right? And that was a common theme in my life all throughout my 20s and then my 30s. And I would have moments where I really got it together, and I would really start doing well, but then I would backslide and go into a backslidden state. So that was a common theme throughout my 30s, and then eventually, like in my early 40s, um, I was again living a very toxic lifestyle. And the girlfriend that I'm still currently with now, we met about 5 years ago. And the two of us were, drinking together, and there was a lot of partying and carrying on. And throughout this time, it started probably in my mid 30s. I began hearing the voices, right? So, and I would always brush it off, always brush it off, right? So we found out she was pregnant, and I said, man, that's it. Like, I have to really get my act together here. Like, I'm not going to screw this baby's life up. I'm not going to screw this up anymore. So on July 26th, I checked myself into a detox, and then they transferred me to a rehab on July 28th. And then my first night in the rehab, I'm laying in bed, and I'm just overcome with stress. I'm overcome with anxiety. I'm overcome with guilt and shame and like embarrassment and worry, like so much worry. Like, man, I really have to do this and like get it together. And one of the voices broke in, and it said, Kevin, are you ready? And I remember, and I recognized the voice. It's been a voice that's been with me for about 3 years. And I named him at that time, John. Um, and, and I remember being quiet. And then all of a sudden, boom, like my room became a planetarium. Stars, galaxies, complex geometrical patterns, morphing in and out of itself, alien faces, hockey mask faces, human faces that would reach out to me and say, I like this guy, mountain ranges, treetops, like as if I was in a helicopter flying over top of like, and it was weird because it would like fan out. It would fan out. And then, so like, let's say that this is my room, it would fan out and almost like a projection. And then it would kind of come in and then go flat like this, so that it was just a thin line. And then it would fan out again into a large, like a projection. So I thought I'm projecting this into my environment from my eyeballs somehow. Like something's coming into my head and projecting this into my eyeball. Only to look back now and realize that whatever it was all in my perception of my environment. That's almost virtually impossible for that to actually occur. And and at that moment, the voices went from sporadically appearing in my life to 24/7, nonstop. There was three voices, two males and a female at all times. And it started off very cordial and almost like luring me in, like, yes, trust us, like we're here to help you. Like I thought it was guardian angels, I thought it was angelic forces, like finally, like something's shown some pity on me or something, like something's here to help me. And then so I would listen. I listened intently and would follow through with what they were saying and would write stuff down, and was just enthralled with this whole thing, and was quiet about it. Like I didn't tell anybody about it at all. And the voices were speaking directly to me, by name, and there was communication, like all just my internal monologue became an internal dialogue at all times, 24/7, right? So, and I will say I went through no detox. Like no withdrawals, no nothing during that time at all, which was bizarre. Um, okay, so I went through the rehab, got out of the rehab, and my girlfriend and I were staying in an extended stay. Before we found this, and then this is when it took a nasty turn. All right, so and this is where it turned into what cognitive behavior therapy would refer to as fear exposure therapy. So basically, fear exposure therapy is introducing an individual to their darkest fears, usually in a safe manner. Well, this took place 24/7. It didn't matter where I was. So my biggest fears in life, um, I had a fear of other people's opinions. This is called FOPO, FOPO, fear of other people's opinions. I lived a life where I was basically, ashamed of my behavior, my failings, not being able to really get it together and keep it together. And I relied heavily on other people's perceptions of me. And if others could think that I was doing well, then to me that was good enough, right? But knowing deep down that I wasn't well, I was just confused and scared and remorseful. So that had to take place first, and that took place by just completely dismantling and destroying my ego. So the voices would go on for about 4 or 5 days, just saying the most grandiose things that you could possibly think of. You're the best person we've ever met. We're so thankful we came across you. What can we do to help you? You're going to change the world someday. You're a great, just these like, and you're really like, yes, yes. And then it would go quiet. And then one voice would come in and go, how effing stupid are you? You really believe that? Oh my God, this guy. And then they'd all start mocking me and just, and you're believing it, right? Again, because it's speaking directly to your subconscious. So you're believing all of this. And I remember the first time that and there is at all times a high pitch ringing associated with this experience. Now, this is the most common symptom shared amongst the targeted individual community, and it's also shared amongst the schizophrenia community, and it's shared amongst the experiencers community, the abductees community, the telepathy community, starseeds community, the Schumann resonance community. Everybody hears this high pitch ringing noise, right? So it penetrates the brain. It makes the brain kind of like, for me, it used to be very intense. It's really died off over the past 2 years, but it used to like penetrate my brain and create an anxiety. And then the voices would run this cycle. And I used to drive my head through walls. Literally, I've put holes through bathroom walls, through bathroom doors and bedroom walls with my head, screaming, "Get the F out!" Just screaming. I mean, it was terrible. So it went from being this benevolent thing to this malevolent, demonic, get the F out of my, what are you? And I can't get rid of it. So now it's this leeching, parasitic thing that is now addicted to me that I can't get rid of. I can't get rid of this, right? So now the addiction has reversed. I used to have a problem with substances. Now this thing is addicted to me, and I have to figure out how to get rid of it, right? So, and I find that's kind of the paradoxical theme of this that we go through, right? So it would do these plays, and I remember one night, and this is the last time that they did that, because they got me with it for about 2 months. They did it again one night, and I fell into it again. And you're going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're the bee's knees, like all these like just crazy, grandiose, over the top, ego feeding statements, making me feel good about myself. And then you are an effing idiot. Are you serious? You actually put. And I wanted to just punch. I wanted to punch something, but I remember I laid there and I just let it. I resonated with that anger, that anxiety, that confusion, and I heard in the top of my head a ping, like the over tightening of an E string on a guitar when it pops. Ping! And I felt a cold wash come down over me. And I said, whoa, like, whoa. So that for me was almost like a transformation of energy. I had never done that before in my life. I had never done that. So, and then they stopped doing that game. Right. So there's definitely like when you see these patterns and these sequences and this procedure, there's an agenda here. there's uh there's a goal, right? And then they'll do it. They'll keep doing it until you overcome that goal, right? And this is what a lot of people don't realize is that they've somehow been drawn into a procedure and they're meant to get through it. right? Everything that is happening to them is something that is meant to be gotten through, that is for your benefit ultimately. And it will make you think that it's not for your benefit, but even that's something that has to be gotten through so that that's for your benefit, right? Learning how to just take abuse, learning because I don't, there's abusive people in the world. There's people are assholes. We live on the planet Earth. There's assholes exist both online and offline. Like we have to learn to tolerate things that we don't want to tolerate, right? We have to learn to not hold hatred in our hearts. Like you slowly begin to learn that holding hatred is a waste. Like for me to sit here and just hate you, that's like me drinking poison and expecting you to die. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I die when I do that, right? So you learn these things because I had so much hatred in me built up towards everything and confusion, right? And a sense of insignificance in this world, and always wanted to overcompensate that insignificance with this pretentious sense of significance, right? So these are things that you learn, and you learn to get over them, and learn to develop a sense of well-being and be okay with yourself, um all right, so that was one of the things that they did. So I think I had mentioned to you before that I never had an internal monologue, right?
Yeah,
So
that
real
is correct. Yes.
right. So
Off
I
air, we talked about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I never not once in my entire life up until this have I ever heard my own voice in my head, okay? And I didn't even know that that was a common thing. I thought it was something unique to me, right? Because I'm like, "Whoa, I can hear my own voice in my head when I think." And for me, that was something that had to be developed. So I went through almost like I want to say a month and a half period where at all times, 24/7, I could hear just the two voices, the one female and the one male that both kind of sound about my age, speaking to I want to say another version of me in my head, going over my entire life. And they started at the age of when I was a child. And if I was watching TV, I couldn't really hear it, but if I would go into the bathroom and listen in, I'd hear them talking, and they're talking to me. Like there's me talking to these other two voices in my head without my uh
Consent almost,
without my
or
consent. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And they're going through my entire life, right? And I'm hearing shit that I completely forgot about. Secretaries at work, aunts and uncles, I forgot. Like, I'm like, whoa, I forgot that even happened. Like, what did? So something was completely going through my entire personal unconscious, my long term memory, my subconscious mind, right? And just going through it and going through it. And every now and then they would stop, and the voice would come in, and they'd say, "Kevin, you were the same person you were 25 years ago," and then they go back at it again, and then for about a few more days. Kevin, you were the same person you were 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And then finally it was Kevin, you are the same person you've always been. And then they stopped doing that. So it was like they went through my entire life until the present moment. And now this, and now here. Now, that's not to say that that was a one and done kind of thing, because as time went on, they would begin to use my past memories for associations, because there was things in there I needed to get over. Right, I had well, being an alcoholic and struggling with drug addiction. I had certain memories that I and certain circumstances and environments that still held a lure for me. That Right. They would bring it up out of nowhere. So, like, let's say just like right now, all of a sudden, some area in Philadelphia would just flash. I mean, literally visually flash, and just I know that it's there, and that's what they're trying to associate with me. And there's no, foreseeable chain of reaction that should have occurred. It's something out of left field, and you know that it's not of you, it's of them. Okay, so that's another thing that would happen. So another big part of my experience was evoked emotions. Um, I went through, and now this is what some people would refer to as loosh, like a biochemical farming. I don't think that it's that. For me, it was almost like a purge. I would have periods where it felt as if decades of suppressed anxiety, anger, and stress were regurgitated from somewhere deep within. And it would start in like the crawl space of my mind and come up through the first floor, the second floor, the third floor. And then I could feel it. I could feel it coming. I could feel it coming, and then it would blow out the chimney stack. And it was like, I mean, it would happen and I would say that they did it at times where there was nobody around for the most part. There was a few times where I had to excuse myself from company or from the presence of other people and go somewhere in private and just let it vent. But when they first started doing this, and it was, it would just come out of me, it was like, right. I felt like my bones were going to pop out of my skin. It was beyond, it was a panic attack times 1,000. And then, oh my gosh, like it would just come down and it would come down. And then eventually what happened was I could see that that's what it was going for. Right. So it was as if it would start a dialogue of confusion at a very low level of consciousness and then work it up and work it up and work it up and work it up. And if you're not careful, if your inner dialogue doesn't know how to rebuttal it or react to it appropriately with a sense of conviction, it'll come out. It'll come right out. So that's what it teaches you. It teaches you how to rebuttal anything that comes into your subconscious with something with conviction, right? Because that's an important aspect of this experience is developing a sense of conviction towards whatever it is that you perceive to be truthful about yourself and about your world. Otherwise, it'll just take advantage of you. And it took, I want to say, about maybe a dozen times of having to go through this before I started learning to identify the match coming towards the detonating cord, getting ready to light the TNT, and then I could blow it out and then stop it. And now it doesn't even happen. It doesn't even happen anymore. So, but it took almost, I want to say, a year, little over a year of doing that for me to get adapted to it and learn how to not. Um, so the evoked emotions were a big part of my experience. Not giving credibility to the physical sensations was a big part of my experience. So anytime that I would feel a physical sensation, some sort of a poking or a zap or a prodding, I refused to respond to it. Absolutely refused to respond to it. And you come to find out that that is one of the best things that you can do to this thing is to not give it attention, right? It's as if it wants your attention so that you learn to not give it attention, right? If it's very interesting. So eventually what you come to realize is that what this thing focuses in on is um is is all right. So it's a few things, but it's one main thing. And if you can understand the one main thing, you can you can figure out the other things. And that one main thing is our inherent state of confusion as a human being, right? So we are there's 8 billion of us on this planet. Okay, we come into this world and we have no clue what the hell we're doing here. We don't know why we're here, what's going on, who put us here, why do we have awareness, what is consciousness, why are we far more advanced than any other species on this planet? Like, is there a God? Is there something that happens after death? Like, we are inherently confused. We have no actual explanation for why we are here with any empirical evidence whatsoever, right? That is our inherent state of being as a human. Okay. So that is the baseline. That is the foundation for everything that they use to to build everything else off of. Off of that inherent state of confusion, right, comes your sense of significance or insignificance in this world, right? We feel insignificance. We feel insignificant in this world. We're one of 8 billion. We don't know what the hell we're doing here, so we have to do something to identify ourselves, to set ourselves apart, to be original, right? To be authentic, to be genuine. And that gives us our sense of significance, or we find it in some sort of a religion. Let's say you get into Christianity. I find my significance within the church and my relationship with Jesus and with God. Or you're a Buddhist. I find my significance in the followings of Buddha and my following through with the eightfold, with the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path, and that's my sense of significance. And but we all try and search for these things that make us feel significance, these things that give us value, right? To overcompensate for our sense of insignificance, right? And our ego. Our ego is that thing within us that that drives that sense of significance, right? That says you're not confused, that says you're not, um, inherently misplaced, or that you do matter. I do matter, like I matter in the world. Look at me. My name is Kevin, and I matter in this world. Just listen to me, but don't listen too
Yep.
deeply. Look at me, but don't look at everything, right? But don't look at everything, right? So that's our ego, and that's what it uses. That's what it hones in on. That's what it exasperates beyond measure until you die to that ego, until you no longer have an attachment to it, until you no longer care about your, until you, not that you no longer care about your sense of significance or insignificance, but you look higher. Until you start looking deeper into the nature of things, until you start saying to yourself, I am more than my physical body. There's a lot more to life than just this, than my skin and my, I'm dying right now. I'm dying. You're dying. My daughter's 1.5. She's on her way to death. Right. So like we're as soon as we're born, we're running out of time. Like that's just the nature of being a human being. Right. So accepting that, right? They run these fear programs, these things where they're constantly trying to threaten to kill you, but never following through with it, to make you face your own mortality, right? So everything that this thing does is a means to push you beyond being human, beyond being human, right? And then more paranormal stuff will started beginning to happening. Now I already shared the stuff with the light orbs, with that. So, but okay, but let me kind of go back, because at this point I started learning, right? As mean and as inhumane and as unorthodox and as psychotic as this thing was, I was learning. And it captivated me enough to continue staying sober. It, right? It provided a distraction that far surpassed any craving I had ever had in my life for drugs or alcohol. And I've been sober since July 28th, 2023. I've gotten
Congratulations
sober
on
and
that.
stayed. Thank you. Yeah, it's a miracle, right? It's a horrific miracle, right? If you can say, like, it's, but yeah, if you can utilize this thing and just grab it by the balls, really, and learn from it and harness everything that it's trying to teach you, yeah, you can change. Like, you can change in a profound way that you never thought possible. You'll start to see the world differently, yourself differently, life differently, relationships differently, paranormal activity differently, consciousness differently, an
Well,
interdimensional presence. Yeah, go
it
ahead.
sounds
I'm
like, yeah.
rambling.
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. It sounds like you've taken this, which could quite possibly be like a detriment or a negative aspect, and you've turned it into a tool that you are utilizing to better yourself. You've taken
Yeah,
this negative experience, and I'm assuming that's why you created your subreddit, positive TI,
right,
is because you're like, no, no, I'm going to use this experience to my benefit, and I'm going to benefit from this and use this as a tool, not become a victim or a slave to this.
right, exactly. So one of the biggest things that I noticed when I started getting involved, well, first of all, when I started going online looking for other people that may be experiencing this, and then, lo and behold, I stumbled across the targeted individual community, and everything that they were sharing was like, oh, yes, yes, that's what I'm experiencing. But they weren't doing well. Like, there was a lot of confusion and anger. And, at this point, I'd been going through it for maybe 6 months, 7 months. I'd gotten out of the hotel, got an apartment, got a job. Um, my girlfriend, we had a home birth with our daughter right in our bedroom. It was beautiful. Our daughter was born right in our bedroom, and we got right in the bed with her, skin on skin contact. It was,
Awesome.
miracles were happening, right?
That's really
Miracles were
important.
happening,
Yeah.
right? And I'm changing, and I'm like, I'm being a better, becoming a better person and learning from this. And then I'm seeing other people 10 years, 7 years, 15 years, still slamming their head against the wall. And I said, whoa, what's going on here? So that's when I started Positive TI and then I started noticing that what I was experiencing was also being experienced in other communities, paranormal communities, like experiencers on Reddit, interdimensional NHI, uh, the Hearing Voices Network, a lot of the, like, some of the Star Seeds ones, um, and that those people were doing well. So then and when you see that and you see that pattern, why some people are doing well, you say, well, why are they doing well? Well, the people and experiencers are doing well because they perceive it differently. They perceive it as something that is trying to show them how to better themselves and progress on a deeper spiritual enlightening path. The targeted individual community thinks that they're being a victim. And it's that victim mindset that keeps them stuck, right? They just want somebody to blame. They just want somebody to hate for this thing happening. And if I'm being completely honest, you cannot blame them. You can't, because it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and it will create hate and hope. Like this thing will it can actually artificially induce hatred. Like hatred. Like I remember one day I was sitting at work and then all of a sudden I hear the high pitched ringing and anger just out of nowhere for no reason at all just started coming up within me, right? And you're like you want to direct it somewhere. You want to hate something, like where do I focus this hatred? And I remember sitting there saying, I'm not required to hate anybody. That's not mine. I don't own that. That doesn't belong to me. And it went away. Right. And I think that this is a big thing that a lot of people are missing, is that what is happening is meant for the individual to understand that you're not meant to own this. Right. Don't take it personal. And it's hard to say that. It's hard to say it when it's happening to your person. Don't take it personal. But that is the mindset that is required to get through this. Don't take it personal, right? Take everything that it says and does with a grain of salt. What can I do to learn from this and move on to the next thing? And it does get better. Like it really, really, it's been my experiences now has been for 22 months. And I started with, at times, man, there was 7 to 8 voices bombarding me 24/7 from the moment I woke up, from the moment till I went to bed. And in my dreams, I'm hearing it. I'm talking 24. When I say 24/7, I mean 24/7, and constantly getting stabbed and poked and prodded and felt like I was being maced, and crazy perverse dreams and negative thinking and just bombarded with derogatory statements and words. To now, 22 months later, I hear the one female voice still predominantly, and it's very backgroundish. It's usually mumbles. I don't understand. I don't really. I know that it's there, but I can't really understand what it's saying. It's as if it starts here, right in your ear, and then it sounds like it's a block over, and it's just something repetitive. It's almost like at this point, it's just general maintenance, making sure that my mind stays on the same track that it's in right now, understanding that it's meant to be gotten through, and that's, it's as if like I set up my own subconscious barrier, like because of my lifestyle, I had broken down a barrier and something came through and taught me how to rebuild that thing up to make sure nothing comes through again. Or if anything does come through again, it's identified quickly and learn to discard and learn how to rebuke and and spoken against immediately. So, and that I would say that right there, what I just said, is a very main thing that people need to understand, is that you can learn from this, right? And that what this thing is trying to do, if you allow it, is teach you to protect yourself. If you listen to the testimonies of people that have gotten through this, they all have come to the same conclusion, that what we experience is a pretentious display of malevolence. Okay? It's a pretentious antagonist. Okay? So it will play that part so convincingly that you will think that a demon is trying to kill you, but it's you are meant to get through it. You are meant to push through it. You are meant to learn from it. And you are meant to become better because of it. And that, if I could sum up what people really need to hear about this, that is what needs to be heard. The schizophrenia community needs to know that. The target individual community needs to know that. And if people come on to the Reddit community, I have an entire 12-step program set up to help a person go through this if it were to happen to them, that teaches them a level of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-realization. and then learning how to extrovert all of that into and incorporate yourself back into society again. I have sponsors set up in the community, people that I know that I've spoken to over the past year that are more than willing to take somebody under their wing and show them and talk to them every day. We have a discourse set up, power awareness discourse. If anybody wants to reach out to me, we have a community that is growing already with people that are doing well. They are getting through. I have done this unmedicated, unmedicated, not one iota of medication, nothing to this
I I
entire
I,
thing.
I, pers- I personally believe medication only covers it up. It doesn't actually solve any of the problems.
You
It's
are
just a
100%
band-aid.
correct. Yes, you are 100% correct. All that it does is it treats the symptoms, but it doesn't cure the problem at all. The problem
Amen.
is a spiritual one. The problem is a psychological one, and it's something that you need to tackle psychologically and spiritually. And that's all that I focus on in that community is, and I don't even allow the technological talk because that's all people want to talk about is technology and they want to talk about their neighbors. No, I don't even allow it. I delete the post immediately. Come, share your testimony. Let's talk about it. We'll help share our testimony together and, help kind of, push you through it. Um,
Now, so
yeah,
I,
go
I
ahead.
was I was I had a couple of questions, but you inadvertently answered them, which were
Okay.
like, if you had the world's ear for 1 minute, what would you
Yeah.
say about this? And it was kind of exactly what you said. Is all this
Yeah.
awareness, and then also I was going to ask if someone, what would you say to someone who's just realizing they might be targeted? But of course, you just said come to my subreddit and we have this 12-step program. We have
Yeah.
sponsors that will help and walk you through that. So I do have one last question here.
Yeah.
um Now, do you think targeted individuals are chosen randomly, or is there something that's deeper, even
No,
like a
I,
spiritual reason behind who's targeted?
no, I think that this is something that every single person on this planet is unaware of, but it intertwines with our consciousness. I am actually firmly convinced of that, that this is just something that is here. It's something that has always existed. I mean, for as long as man has been documenting, he's been documenting some sort of interdimensional presence on this planet, manipulating the minds of man behind the scenes. Whether you call it demons, angels, jinn, if you're Buddhist, they call it Mara and his armies. It doesn't matter. It goes back
So
thousands of years.
so you
Yeah,
feel that you possibly, and I don't mean this in any negative way to other people, but
sure.
like you're more dialed into this frequency, so it's kind of like a channel. Instead of some people it's all
Yes,
white noise, whereas
yes,
you actually have a clear direct line to this
yes,
channel and you can hear it much clearer than many
yes.
others.
You said it 100%. You said it exactly how I believe it to be. That it is a frequency that is comprised of man, it's almost like it's comprised of just the worst of humanity, the most derogatory, perverse, racist, nastiest, depreciating things that you could possibly think. And I think that some people are unknowingly in tune with that, and then they start to experience the negative synchronicities that happen because of that. Some of us get the full faced experience with that, and we have to push through it, but it is something that is meant to be pushed through. I think that it is entirely
Not to
comprised.
get
Yeah,
stuck in where a lot of
right,
people will get stuck in
right,
one level. You need to rise above that, is what you're
right.
saying.
I think it's the frequency that keeps us stuck in a state of reincarnation. I really do, man. Like I think it's that. I think it's the thing that is comprised of our ego, our selflessness, our strive for money, for greed, for anger, and for delusion in this world, and for our erroneous sense of significance. I think it's entirely comprised of that. It's an accumulation of all of those things. Now whether these are beings in a lower realm that it's comprised of interacting with us, whether it is just some sort of a frequency, because when you talk to people all over the planet and they're all hearing the same exact thing, you go, well, this is something. It encapsulates the planet. And then you come to understand that people in that country are hearing it in that language. So one of the guys that he's the founder of OTIR, Objective Targeted Individual Research. His name's Peter. He has done a ton of research on this, right? And has also come to the same paranormal conclusion. But he's Russian. His experience started when he moved to Italy. And when he moved to Italy, um, he started hearing the voices in Italian. and he didn't know what the hell it was. So he's Google translating it, and he had to go get an Italian to Russian dictionary, only to find out it's the same exact negative nonsense. And then eventually it switched over to Russian, right? People in Australia hear it with an Australian accent. People in Canada, Canadian accent. People like wherever the person is, it's in their dialect and in their accent. Some people hear a different language entirely, and they don't know what it is, and they have to but it's negative. It's something very negative. So whether it's you know whether it's that but again, it'll play the good cop bad cop role simultaneously, having you pulled back and forth in this state of confusion, forcing you to find yourself in the present moment. Like you really, really have to force yourself to find yourself in in the middle, right? Because it'll constantly pull you between stupid, genius, fat, skinny, right, wrong, black, white, yes, no, here or there. You have to be okay saying I don't know, and I'm okay not knowing. You have to be okay saying maybe. You have to be okay saying I am enough, right? You have to be okay saying I'm not confused. I choose this to be truth, and I'm okay with this truth that I and stick to that truth with conviction. That's what's going to get somebody through this. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Kevin, this has been fantastic. This has been
Yeah.
very enlightening. Um, very interesting. Also, very positive too. Your side of it is very positive, which I commend hugely. I say that a lot of times where people get stuck in these quagmires and they end up, becoming this victim of the circumstance or the situation. And it's like, no, we have to rise above that. We have to stop being these
Yes.
victims and
Yes.
use, like, I've seen a lot of people use their experiences as a positive thing. And it's like, no, I'm not going to be this victim. I'm going to use this as a stepping stone to for bigger and greater things. And it seems that you are doing that. You've learned from it. You have taken this, most likely for many, this negative, destructive frequency, and you've turned it into this positive. And I commend you for that,
Thank
greatly.
you. Thank you very much.
So,
Awesome.
Kevin, one last time, why don't you give a shout out to your subreddit? Tell everybody where they can find it. And of course, you've answered those questions of like,
Yeah.
where are these people who are just experienced this, where they should go? Those were my final questions, but
Yeah.
you did too good of a job. So, one last time, yeah, let everybody know where they can find you.
Absolutely. So again, if you go on Reddit, and if you don't have Reddit, download it because I think it's probably one of the best social media outlets out there. I really do. And go to Positive TI. Okay. Also, you can go on YouTube and look up Para Awareness. Just Para Awareness, PARAWARENESS. Or if you're on Discord, now you have to have an invite link to get. That's just how Discord operates. So if you go onto Reddit and you reach out to me, you'll see. I'm the moderator on there. You can reach out to the moderator. That's me, and just say, "Can I have a Discord link?" I actually think we have it posted on the top of the Reddit page as well, and it's a permanent invite link. Join in there. We have 24/7 communication going on with people from around the world that are up. There's people up I mean, I wake up and there's people that have been up all night talking about all of it, sharing their experiences, sharing their selfies, like that's a big thing for me, is that because this is such a fear-based and paranoid-based orchestration and mechanism that people are afraid of showing their faces. They rely on their anonymity. So not in there. We don't do that. I make it a point to show my face, to show my family's face, to expose myself. You don't have to hide. You don't have to live in fear. That's not necessary, right? So we have a page on there where you can just post your picture and see all of us. We have one on there that has the entire history of the TI phenomena, going all the way back to like the James Tilly Matthews case in the 1700s. He was the first documented case of schizophrenia. That it's a very important read for people to read that. He was the first targeted individual. Now, this was back before radio. This was back before any technology. And this guy was drawing what he referred to as an heirloom, which he said the British Parliament had constructed to broadcast thoughts into his head. He had this whole weird technological thing that it's bizarre. You got to look these things up. Like this has been going on for a long time. And again, the guy went through the same exact sequence and procedure that every single one of us are going through. And this was in the late 1700s. We have all the Buddhist literature that talks about Mara and how Mara operates the same exact way from like 500 AD, Dhyana lectures, and from Buddhist scripture 2,000 years ago. So we have all this insight to bring to the table, that you can go in there and read. But a lot of people don't know this, but Socrates heard voices that directed his life and his thinking. Like there's all this history behind hearing voices, and all these influential people in history that have heard voices that have, and we, in today's society with the schizophrenia label, we call it mental illness and we call it psychosis, and we don't address it properly. So yes, come into the community, come and speak to us. Let's help you address it appropriately, get your life back on track, and learn the bigger meaning here, that you are more than your physical body and that there's something else entirely more going on here. Yeah.
E- Exactly. And, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell people what to do or what not to do, but medications are usually just treating the symptoms. They are a band-aid solution. We have to treat the problem. So
Yes,
that's
I 100% agree.
cannot
Yeah.
cannot implore that any more than that. Well,
Yeah.
Kevin, again, thank you so much, and I thoroughly appreciated this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. All right, Curiosity Seekers, that was quite the conversation. And, whether you see Kevin's experience as high strangeness or a frequency from beyond or a haunting by something we don't yet understand, one truth remains. The world is weirder and perhaps more watchful than we're led to believe. From whispered voices in the night to lights in the periphery, what we call paranoia might just be perception, tuned into and turned up too loud to ignore. Everyone, like Kevin said, you can follow his ongoing journey on his. He has his YouTube channel. Forgot to plug that the name of that at the end, but it will be in the show notes. And his subreddit, the Positive TI Community, which is a support for, for sanity and even salvation for you. So until next time, everyone, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is the light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step alien worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come and